So just to finish up, you see what's happening? The process is rigged. This whole election is being rigged. These lies spread by the media, without witnesses, without backup or anything else, are poisoning the minds of the electorate. No witnesses, no backup, no anything else. And I'm telling you, I have many top professionals. Don't talk about this, Donald. Nobody believes. I said, maybe some do believe it. You have to talk about it. When somebody makes, am I right? When somebody makes an accusation that you did something and you weren't there, you never saw this person before. It's a lie, total lie. It's fabrication. Sometimes they do it for fame. Maybe they get money. Who knows? The Clinton campaign is pushing it. The New York Times did a story on somebody where it was totally false. They knew it was totally false. We gave them the information. They wrote a whole big page about somebody where they were sending me emails and letters and everything, and then you realize it was a one-way send, by the way. There was nothing sent back. And you realize it was a totally phony deal. They did a whole big story on it. They didn't mention all of the emails. They didn't mention everything coming my way. And others looked at it, and as bad as they were, as soon as they saw all this stuff that was sent, they immediately decided not to do this. The New York Times did a story on it. They read these stories, and people might not know how untrue they are. It's really a disgrace. I've been saying this for a long time. The whole thing we've been going through, and I hate to say it, but the whole thing we're going through, Bernie Sanders, it was a rigged deal. The whole thing is one big fix. It's one big fix. It's one big ugly lie. It's one big fix. The press can't write the kind of things they write, which are lies, lies, lies. The stories are fabrications and false. And the only thing I say is hopefully, our patriotic movement will overcome this terrible deception. Hopefully our great movement, and there's never been anything like this in the United States, and the only way they figure they can slow it down is to come up with people that are willing to say, oh, I was with Donald Trump in 1980. I was sitting with him on an airplane. And he went after me on the plane. Yeah, I'm going to go after. Believe me, she would not be my first choice, that I can tell you. Man. You don't know. That would not be my first choice.
Continuing coverage now of President Trump's call to launch an investigation into his unsupported claims of widespread voter fraud. Let's bring in A.B. Stoddard, associate editor at RealClearPolitics.com. It is the reporting of Fox News that widespread voter fraud did not happen. There's no evidence that any widespread voter fraud happened. There never has been. What is this really about?
Well, we heard Sean Spicer, the press secretary, come out yesterday and reiterate several times that it is the president's belief that this has happened. And he said many times it's a belief he maintains according to studies and evidence he's received. And then he cited the Pew poll that even Pew has said was misinterpreted, and there is no
actually showed there was none.
Right. There's no evidence of large voting fraud. So what you saw today was John Roberts of Fox News asking Sean Spicer, didn't the president's lawyer, when Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, asked for a recount in key battleground states, didn't your lawyer submit a statement saying that basically that there, as of their assessment, there was no fraudulent activity in this election in 2016, and that's when Sean today went on to talk about people being dead who are on the rolls and registered in several states. That all sounds fine, and there can be an effort state by state to clean up voter rolls. It turns out two of the incoming Treasury Secretary and the chief strategist for President Trump, both Steve Bannon and Steven Mnuchin, are both registered in two states. People do die and they do move, but that is different from charging that there was 3 to 5 million illegal votes that somehow the Democrats managed at a national level to affect in 50 state elections, and then of course let her lose in 3 battlegrounds. So that's a totally different thing. And if he calls for this investigation, Shep, we really have no idea how it's going to be handled. Elections are handled by the states, not by the federal government. It's why it's so hard to rig an election, and we're interested to know how much this is going to cost the taxpayer.
John Bussey from the Wall Street Journal suggests that the big picture is here: start an investigation, find some incidents here, there, and yon of voter fraud, get people whipped up, and then put in rules to suppress the vote across the country. A pattern that we've seen. That's what the
Democrats are afraid of.
A pattern that we've seen in state after state over the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
This is what the Democrats are afraid of. The Supreme Court struck down part of the Voting Rights Act. You have seen all this concern about Senator Sessions becoming Attorney General because Democrats are afraid he'll use the Justice Department to take further action to restrict voting. Right now, they have been very concerned about voter ID laws passed in different states across the country, and then the end of some early voting hours, which hindered more access to voting in key states in this election, like Ohio and North Carolina. So that's a big concern on the Democrats' part. I don't think President Trump gave any indication that that's what he's going to do. But when reporters said yesterday repeatedly, if this was the biggest, most widespread voter fraud ever, why wouldn't he investigate it? It seemed as if that was the response this morning, so that Sean Spicer wouldn't have to continue to answer questions about that.
The list of falsehoods from the president is growing. Does this have a cumulative effect?
Well, it's really unfortunate with all of the flurry of activity that he's embarked on in terms of policy measures this week, that he has stepped on his own story about photos that are, the crowd assessments that were demonstrably false, and sending his press secretary out to lie on Saturday night. And then now this, telling congressional leaders, who know better. I guess they were politely silent, and then making this a big deal for Sean Spicer to defend again yesterday to reporters is a mistake. It's stepping on message. It's a waste of time, and it obviously hinders his credibility around the world and the credibility of our democracy.
A.B. Stoddard from RealClearPolitics.com. A.B., thank you.
Just in, Trump was right. Washington Times just published final analysis, millions voted illegally. Fight it now was the battle cry from Democratic Party chair front-runner, Keith Ellison, DMN, soon after President Trump announced a major investigation into voter fraud. So if the Soros-led progressive Democrats have nothing to hide, then why fight the investigation? Why not fully cooperate in a bipartisan effort to expose fraud and weaknesses in the system vulnerable to vote manipulation? Why? Because Democrats do have something to hide, and that something could prove huge in the lopsided election results in the presidential race. Crooked Hillary somehow managed to receive millions of more popular votes than President Trump, though the Donald gave the dethroned Queen a royal thumping in the Electoral College, where it actually matters, even capturing the blue state flagships like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So where, exactly, did all those votes for the murderous Benghazi traitor come from? According to a Washington Times report, one study just released shows Hillary may have gotten more than 800,000 illegal votes. Political scientist Jesse Richman of Old Dominion University in VA has been working with other colleagues in groundbreaking research in illegal immigrant voting. The result of that study is shocking. Through a scientific statistical approach, Richman claims out of the 20 million illegals, 6.4% would have voted, and of that number 834,381 of those illegals would have voted for Clinton. This report, along with any other form of scientific research, utilizes the idea of what is called standard deviations. It refers to how likely an unordinary outcome could occur, and what that final result might be. In short, it is very plausible that the number rests 1 to 2 standard deviations north of the estimated 800,000, which would put the number well into the millions. And yet the MSM is still arguing against President Trump's claims of massive voter fraud occurring in the election. President Trump has continuously warned the American people how their right to choose their president and commander-in-chief is potentially in danger every 4 years. Sounding the trumpet going back 5 months ago, then GOP nominee Trump told the American people the truth: this whole system is rigged. As presidential candidate Trump, he promised the American people, he will drain the swamp. And as his first week in office is proving, President Trump is keeping his campaign promises, all of them including exposing the Democrat Party's corruption in attempting to rig elections through voter fraud, methods the Marxist Party usurpers have been using for decades, as well as some new ones. Though massive amounts of evidence has been revealed through the years, the mainstream media continues to spout that President Trump is wrong, and now GOP rhinos are climbing on board the Soros train to keep the engine running. House Speaker Paul Ryan, RWIS, said in a Fox News report, he had seen no evidence to support Trump's claim. What world is Ryan living in anyway? The world of delusional self-promoting and enriching DC politics, a land of wealth and luxury provided to them by the tax-paying voter. These rhino Republicans live inside a shatterproof glass bubble far outside the reach of the average citizen and the voting districts. Why listen to the rantings of conspiracy theorists who have evidence of fraud? After all, media outlets like CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, and CBS are the only credible sources of truth in news. All others besides Soros online media like the Huffington Post, are just fake news, sources of news they seek to silence. Right. Breitbart picked up a story by the Detroit News back in December showing voter fraud in Michigan. The local newspaper obtained records which proved fraud. Wayne County Clerk Kathy Garrett found that in 248 of the city's 662 precincts, more votes had been counted than the number of people who had been marked as having voted. Oh, but that is just human error, according to corrupt Dems. No uproar in the MSM, no journalistic investigation by these national credible news source. Just move along, nothing to see here. It's all Russia's fault and that evil tyrant bully, Putin. Sure, that's credible evidence to use to deny voter fraud. Can you imagine the outrage if just one fraudulent vote were cast for a Republican? Fox News, a media outlet which boasts fair and balance while claiming to be the conservative voice of the people, is also leading the charge to question the president's claims, ignoring reports of evidence of Dem shenanigans nationwide, mouthing the same spin on fraud reports as the MSM and progressive Democrats. No evidence, human error, and though fraud does exist, it is on a tiny, minuscule scale that has no effect on final results. Really? It's okay to cheat if it's only just a little bit of fraud. Fraud in one county in Detroit may not have a substantial effect on final results, but where there is smoke there is always a blaze ready to burst into a firestorm. And that spark ignited a century ago with the birth of the communist movement in the U.S. That shadowy underground movement which infiltrated the Democratic Party hit a huge fire break line this past presidential election, one that is ready to burn out the firestorm once and for all: Donald J. Trump, the 45th President of the people. President Trump is going forward guns ablaze and aimed straight at the heart of Soros elitists and Dem comrades' tactics to cheat Americans out of one of the most important rights in the Constitution, their vote. He tweeted earlier in the week, "I will be asking for a major investigation into voter fraud, including those registered to vote in 2 states, those who are illegal and even those registered to vote who are dead, and many for a long time. Depending on results, we will strengthen up voting procedures." And let's not forget those Soros-owned and managed computer voting machines in 16 states. Oh, but that is just a pants-on-fire conspiracy theory. George Soros has no hand in the management or ownership of Smartmatic. As is typical of such claims, this one is based on nothing more than the most tenuous of connections, according to the official fact-checker Snopes. And who funds Snopes? Could it be a tenuous connection to one of Soros' many non-profit operations? The tenuous connection the obviously liberal-biased Snopes is referring to is Smartmatic chairman Lord Mark Malloch Brown of Great Britain. He conveniently sits on the global board of the Open Society Foundation, an international grant-making network founded by, you guessed it, George Soros. First, why are we contracting voting machine manufacturing and routine maintenance to a company outside of the US? And you think it's Russians who are hacking? And to make matters worse, guess who is subcontracted to service these machines? The corrupt CEU. The Obama-backing communist union led by none other than Obama pal Andy Stern. Remember the Acorn scandals a few years back? Guess who founded that organization and was responsible for all of the illegal activities including voter fraud? Andy Stern. No, nothing to see here. It's just the Russians meddling in our elections. One thing these Soros New World Order elitists were not counting on was the sudden rise of the deplorables. Their massive attempts of stealing the election for crooked Hillary were thwarted by the master of the art of the deal and his genius campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. The numbers of legal voters who turned out for the election could not be overshadowed by the Dems' illegal and dead voters. But the war is not over, deplorables. As Soros Dem puppet Ellison cried, fight it now. And fight on these traitors will, but the soldiers of Almighty God have risen and will be victorious.